So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. Gulustan Ozturk is an assistant professor of food science at UW-Madison and is funded by the Dairy Innovation Hub. Her research focuses on bioactive milk compounds and advanced separation processes to support personalized nutrition and human health. Please welcome Gulustan. All right.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction, and then good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about the dairy co-product that we have been using in our lab, whey protein phospholipid concentrate, and then how we are using those bioactive compounds to translational applications with my collaborator and then team members. So here is our food science department and then Center for Dairy Research. And I am a dairy innovation faculty, and then you will hear a lot of amazing talks today in all different areas, and then our focus on here is the human health and nutrition. And then these are my group members, and I'm gonna talk about almost everybody's research a little bit. And then Becca will have a presentation today in same session, and then Luis hopefully will join us later in the afternoon, and then Soren also has a poster presentation in the afternoon. So our group's team is really using the integrated dairy bioactives platform for human health. So in our group, we are focusing on enzymes, oligosaccharides, milk fat globule membrane, antimicrobial. So they are all in milk or in different dairy streams. And then what we do is currently we are using processing technologies such as membrane systems, fermentation, or using different kind of fractionation methods to basically target some of those compounds and then either isolate them or enrich them and then use them as they are, again, looking at their functionality, and then either use them as they are or include them in another food applications and look for human health. And then we also have another platform that we are using microorganisms, so like a probiotics with all these different compounds in milk. It could be like a prebiotics, and then making them dairy symbiotics, and then again look for the human health. So when we talk about milk, I a little bit want to show you how milk is secreted. So milk is a complex mixture of sugars, proteins, lipids, ions, and other small molecules. So as you can see that there are 5 different pathways that all these transports are happening. So from one pathway you can look at the basically for proteins, the red one you follow, and then it basically packed the secretory vesicles and transported them into the milk by exocytosis. And then pathway 2, I'm a little bit focusing on this one because the compound that we are using is milk fat globule, and you can see that the yellow basically it is as a lipid droplet, and then when it is leaving the whole this cell system, it basically encapsulated with another layer, so it becomes 3 phospholipid layer, and then that's why it is so unique. And then we have all other pathways basically secreting all these different things to outside of the milk, like this system, and then making it as a milk. And then this is basically structural part of it, and you can also see that as a functionality we have all these different micronutrients and then micronutrients in milk that they have all different functionalities, from improving the bone health, metabolic health, cognitive development, all different functionalities in the milk. So what we really want to do in our group with my collaborators is focusing on dairy-based solutions for aging populations. Really try to make the next generation dairy foods like they are functional, and then basically targeting all different type of diseases, from osteoporosis, hypertension, cognitive health, and then chronic diet-related diseases. And today, or in overall, nowadays, we are particularly focusing on postmenopausal women. And then in our group, we really want to do nutritional and functional food processing, which will be a therapeutic foods for any kind of all those diseases, or innovative food processing, again using dairy probiotic complexes and then looking for development symbiotic and then further usage of them, or sustainable food processing, basically making the value-added foods. We have a lot of dairy foods. When we make them, we also have a lot of dairy co-products and then byproducts. And then our goal is really use them and then make the value-added foods. And for this part, again, when we started with milk, in dairy industries, they are making all these delicious dairy products from butter to cheese. And then when that happens, there will be dairy co-products or dairy byproducts. And then the one that I'm going to focus on today is the whey protein phospholipid concentrate. Again, when we make the cheese, we have a lot of whey. And 50, 60 years ago, this was a problem for dairy industry. And then they adopted the filtration system, and then they basically concentrate the proteins as whey protein concentrate. And then with everything changing the last 20 years, the consumers has been more interested in pure protein, less carbs or less lipids. So in that case, dairy industry introduced the microfiltration. Basically, they are separating the fat part, and then now you have whey protein isolate, and depends on the manufacturer, you could have it from 90 to 95% of whey proteins in your whey protein isolate. And then the dairy co-product that's happening is whey protein phospholipid concentrate. And remember this chart. So whenever you produce whey protein isolate, whey protein phospholipid concentrate is dairy co-product. And then what happens in here is in the US last year, basically 2023, those are the reports from there, and then 140 million pounds of whey protein isolate produced. So it means that, remember the chart with the calculations, more than 100 million pounds of whey protein phospholipid concentrate is produced. So as the amount of WPI increases, we are all interested in proteins, so the amount of WPPC will also increase. So we have plenty of WPPC to work with, and then nowadays industry, like a whole dairy industry, manufacturers, and then academia also has been interested in taking this dairy co-product. It is mainly used for animal health and some of the food processing applications because of the lipids, emulsification, some of those properties, but can we really take this WPPC and then use it in the human nutrition? And why we are so interested in this one is because it has milk fat global membrane. And then remember earlier how I showed you all this secretion system. We have triglyceride core, and then around is those phospholipids. And then we also have proteins. Those proteins are helping structurally to make sure that this lipid is secreted to the cell and then having all curvature structure, but they also have different properties from xanthine oxidase, antimicrobial, or they could be glycosylated proteins that we can use as a prebiotic, and then also glycolipids that we can use. And then during my postdoctoral research when I was at UC Davis with our team, we basically made a detailed characterization, and then we have shown that this dairy co-product we are expecting, because this is the fat part, so the fat percentage, milk fat global membrane, those phospholipids are 20% of the total lipid pool. And then at the same time, remember all those proteins are around, also they are 22% of the total protein. So in milk, normally they are less than 1%. So this WPPC is really concentrated forms of nutrition for those milk bioactives. So when I started at UW-Madison with my collaborators, we have looked for all different usage of this WPPC. Can we go for cognitive health? Can we use it for as a probiotic, making them with the probiotic, or can we look for the bone development, muscle health, osteoporosis, or can we do dietary source of peptides? So all these different areas that we asked the question. But before starting that part, in our own lab, we are also trying to understand how this processing is impacting this WPPC. Remember the flow chart? So in different companies, they take the whey and then from all these different manufacturers, and then when they bring it to their own manufacturing facility, they have to pasteurize it. Or if this WPPC is leaving the company, they still have to pasteurize it. So it has to go through all these different heating steps and then also different filtration systems. So if you want to separate the fats or if you want to separate the proteins, you really need to understand the impact of the heat treatment. So Becca is going to talk about that part soon, so I'm not really going through that part, but that's one of the things that we are studying in our lab, impact of heat-induced alterations with the milk proteins. And then Soren is going to talk about efficient processing and then fractionation strategies. Luis has a poster and then flash talk. So we are focusing on those areas to first really understand how all these interactions are happening, the WPPC quality. And in our lab, we have membrane processing platform for these dairy bioactives, and then we are using cross-flow filtration. And for those ones, you can see that you have a feed flow, you have a retentate, things are on top, and then the things can go through the permeate. And then we have a small-scale filtration unit, and then lab scale, and then hopefully the pilot scale that is coming up soon. So we are starting something with 300 gallons, and then we ended up 3 gallons of WPPC. That's how the filtration is happening. And then again, this is the part that Becca is going to talk about, exploring the heat-induced alterations for whey protein phospholipid concentrate. She gave a talk, and then she will also today talk about another upstream whey protein concentrate. And then 2 other lab members are going to talk about different fractionation strategies for increasing the utilization of whey protein phospholipid concentrate. So from now on, I will go over each slide very quickly about each project. I see that we have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to make sure that quickly talk about all of them, and then all different projects that how we are using WPPC in individual translational applications. So Mitch, he's not here today, but he has been giving this talk in Dairy Innovation Hub symposiums in the previous years. So we are really focusing on aging populations and dairy-based solutions, and one of them is the bone health. We know that older populations are increasing, and then there's a chronic illness related, and then one of them is osteoporosis, and then we have a lot of this dairy co-product, and then we know that there are compounds, they are helping the bone development in milk. So can we use this dairy co-product and then look for the bone health? And then with our team members and collaborators, we have shown that actually this is supporting the bone development. So when we look at the life cycle of bone, basically until the age of 20 or 25, that's your peak bone mass. And then after that is really depends on your diet, depends on your exercise, lifestyle, and then specifically for postmenopausal women, things are changing because of the estrogen levels, and then they are more tend to go to the osteoporosis. So in our first study in here, we have shown that with the whey protein phospholipid concentrate as it is, or we take them and then make the lipid and then the protein fractions, and then we have shown that for the femur length, which is good when you are in your teenager, like the weaning part for the mice in our study, it's good that you are increasing your femur length. And then we have shown that the fat part is actually increasing the bone mineral density, which is so important for osteoporosis, because you can see the structure of the bone, the sponginess. If they are small and they are tight, that's good, so your bone is not going to break. But if they are if you have a big holes, it means that you are more fragile. So we have shown that the fat part is actually helping for bone mineral density, so they are more tight during the development phase. And then with our collaborators right now, we are focusing on, after understanding how each of those fractions are helping, we are focusing on postmenopausal mice model. So this is an ongoing study, and then hopefully we will give some exciting results on that part. And then remember, I was talking about the glycoproteins, like how those proteins, glycoproteins, will be prebiotic. Again, with my collaborators in food science department and microbiology department, we are basing next generation dairy probiotic complexes. So we are using those glycoproteins, the protein enriched part, and then using the lactic acid bacteria. We all know that it's a good probiotic, and then we are combining them, and then what we have shown is these glycoproteins are actually protecting this WPPC through the gastrointestinal digestion part. So in our study, which we submit, and then we will hear back about the revisions, it really increased almost 2 days of the survival in the gut. So it also has gastrointestinal persistence of this bacteria with this complex in vivo. And the other study that I want to focus on is, as we talk about those phospholipids, we have 20% of this whey protein phospholipid concentrate is this phospholipids compared to the total lipid pool. And then remember all those different phospholipids, and then phosphatidylcholine is, we hypothesize this whey protein phospholipid concentrate. Phosphatidylcholine could be metabolized, and then it will be bioavailable for postmenopausal women health. So choline, we know that it is in eggs, and then we have made a WPPC powder, mixed powder formulated, and then we will do a human intervention trials with our collaborators in food science department, and then we will see how the bioavailability of choline in postmenopausal women. And the other last project that I'm going to introduce is, again, we are in Wisconsin. We have producing a lot of cheese. So one of the things that in our group we have developed is how can we make this cheese more functional, and specifically for combat with the hypertension in postmenopausal women. So this is we are just starting this project, so we will make hydrolase from WPPC and incorporate them into mozzarella cheese. Again, with our team, we will do human intervention trials with postmenopausal women, and then we will look for that. And then the last project is I am quickly saying that we have applied a lot of food applications, and this one is for the non-food applications using dairy byproducts for bioplastic production. So thank you so much, and then I'm happy to answer maybe questions after everybody is done. Or yeah, we can do questions. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
All right, time for 1 or 2 questions. Any questions?
It may not be an appropriate question, but could it aid in arthritis, the way or what you're talking about? You said osteoporosis, but as far as bone goes, what about arthritis? Is there any effect on that?
That will be another area that we can definitely focus. So we are starting with osteoporosis or all different other diseases that we are interested in, but that could be another area that we can definitely use this as a dairy bioactives, and then start to investigate that one too.
Okay, thank you.
All right, one more.
Do you know of any initiatives related to yours, or perhaps directly connected, with populations with less good nutrition than Americans tend to have? I'm thinking specifically of India, where you have, women especially, it's getting access to good nutrition. Even having sufficient zinc can be a problem. I wonder if you know anything about that in developing countries.
You mean usage of the data for them, or right now? This is in the U.S. or in Wisconsin, we kind of started this work, but we know that for this specifically whey protein phospholipid concentrate, I have been talking different initiatives, and one of them is in China. They have been so interested in exporting this and then having the usage over there. Or this one, WPPC, is currently, we are trying to get into the infant formula. like one of the example. And as you know, that putting things into the food takes some of the stages with the FDA approval and all other things. So I'm aware of that. In the US, those are the initiatives for infant formula, and then some of the things that we are talking, people from China that they are interested in taking this and then bringing over there and then usage all these different, since it has all these different bioactives compounds. But it will be a good area to investigate for the other countries. They need of kind of this nutritional source.